Welcome to Transnational Competition Law course, and dear learner and viewer, today we are going to discuss the Transnational Competition Law in reference to the BRICS, meaning thereby the Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. The reason for discussing the competition law and policy, especially the transnational competition law, as well as the extraterritorial application of competition law in reference to Brazil, happens to be simple reason that the Brazil is one of those countries besides the United States who has passed the Sherman Act, the Clayton Act in the early 20th century. The BRICS has also passed the competition law much earlier to many of the advanced countries of the world. That's why the Brazilian experiences of competition law and policy and its enforcement and advancement of competition remedies acquire a prominent place in the scheme of the transnational competition law. Dear learner, we will try to see that why we have chosen BRICS as one of the important topic under the course. The fact remains that after the globalization, which has made significant contribution to the competition law and enforcement, and especially if we see the development in the post-globalized world in the last 3 decades, what we notice that the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, collectively amount for a large portion of the global population, land mass, GDP. That's why we always pay a very important kind of an attention to these countries. The economies of the BRICS, consisting of the 5 countries, happens to face many challenges in the institutional development for a sustainable growth and a sustainable future. The competition regulation in these countries happens to be, and its reinforcement among the BRICS countries highlights the areas of interest such as cartel, such as unilateral conduct and merger. So there happens to be an increased decisional and as well as judicial enforcement of the competition statute in these countries, which can serve as a better model and the example to be replicated and immaculated for the future course and direction of the transnational competition law. And this is precisely the raison d'etre and the reason behind choosing this topic of extraterritorial application of competition law in BRICS country. Having realized that these countries possess a large global population, the land mass and the area, and their cumulative contribution to gross domestic product happens to be very high, the BRICS also occupies a prominent place in terms of geopolitical events of the early 21st century, because India, China, Brazil, and Russia rank among the largest 10 nationals economies in the world, and the South Africa happens to be in the top 30 of the countries of the world. Here it is to be said that since the formation of the BRICS, they were originally the Brazil, Russia, India, and China. South Africa joined at a later stage, and today we have almost 10 countries instead of 5 countries, which will be slightly mentioned by us and taking note of those countries' contribution to competition law enforcement and competition remedies. Here it is suffice to say that the BRICS represent almost 3 billion people of the world, and it shares 40% of the world population, thereby their exercising jurisdiction on the competition law and policy and the extraterritorial application of competition law and the transnational competition law assumes a wider ramifications and repercussions in any kind of the academic engagement on competition law and jurisprudence. The BRICS also happens to be the major resource supplier to the industrialized world, and therefore it becomes very quintessential for all of us to see that how the competition law happens to be a kind of a workable climate in the BRICS countries. When we try to see the cumulative growth and the rapid economic growth among these countries, what we find that they are leading to a shift in global economic power, and they have all kind of intention and ambition and potential to surpass many powers of the world, including the Europe and the United States. With this introduction, what we feel that the BRICS is really an international forum which was formalized in the first meeting in the New York in 2006, and it was only in 2011 that out of the BRIC we said BRICS because the South Africa joined the BRICS in 2011, and then today as of now we find that 5 more countries are added to the BRICS. They are called Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and United Arab Emirates. In January 2024, now the BRICS, instead of becoming a conglomerate of the 5 countries, appears to be a union of 10 countries, and thereby taking the combined strength of Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and United Arab Emirates. There happens to be a greater degree of synergistic construction of the competition laws and policy, which spawns a harmonious economic growth among these countries, and it now seems very interesting topic under the transnational competition law. Dear learner and viewer, having understood the introduction and overview and taking a stock of their mighty and vociferous presence in the world economy, we will try to see that how we can locate the significance of the competition law in BRICS countries, and then for that we will try to chisel out as to what some of the market and the business commentators and a scholar have opined about the BRICS vis-a-vis its potential to guide competition law and policy in extraterritorial application and transnational competition law. We will begin with Jim O'Neill's quotation and observation, who belongs to the American bank Goldman Sachs, and he was the first person to give the coinage of the brick in 2001 when he submitted a report building better global economics BRICS, and then building better global economics BRICS report referring to Brazil, Russia, India, and China as the four most fastest growing emerging economies at that time in 2001. And the realization of John O'Neill that these four countries are the most fastest growing emerging economies of the world, that's why they deserve any kind of attention and galvanize a certain degree of attention in terms of the size of the market and the producers and their effect on the global market. With this, we also find that there is another scholar who commented about the very working of the BRICS, Goldman Sachs. He forecasted that the four countries, meaning thereby Brazil, Russia, India, and China, had an enormous growth potential which can easily be compared to surpass the entire European economy in terms of the market size. And Goldman Sachs further goes on to predict that Brazil, Russia, India, and China would be first, third, fifth, and sixth largest economies in the world within a short span of time, and probably by 2050, China will be the first, India will be the third, the Brazil will be the fifth, and Russia will be the sixth largest economy of the world. We can agree and disagree to Goldman Sachs' prediction, but one fact remains constant and cannot be denied is the fact that they have proved their mettle into the global market and have all essential ingredients to see that they are going to make great advancement at the global level. While quoting the observation of Jim O'Neill of American Bank and the Goldman Sachs about their findings and observation about the pivotal role of the BRICS in pursuing the competition law, we will refer to the another American competition law scholar, William Kovacic, who underlined the very significance of studying the BRICS experiences on competition law and enforcement on more than one ground. And it is very appropriate when we are going to construct as to what kind of a role and the seminal role the Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa are going to play and try to have an overturn of the entire paradigm shift in the competition law and jurisprudence, we have to really engage and see that how the American antitrust scholar William Kowake have opined and projected the BRICS as one of the union of the five countries in giving a course and direction to competition law. He goes on to further suggest and observe that the BRICS nation supply informative context in which to analyze the establishment of the competition policy system at the national level. And the BRICS derive larger lessons about superior approaches in comparison to the other jurisdictions where the competition law happens to be in force. William Kowake further says that the BRICS provide an opportunity for an older and the newer competition system to revisit the basic questions about institutional foundation for its successful implementation, enforcement, embarrassment, and as well as the advancement of the competition remedies. Thus, we see that the life cycle of the entire competition regime or the antitrust regime and the measurement of the effectiveness of the extraterritorial application of competition law vis-a-vis the transnational competition law heavily rest upon the study of the competition laws of the BRICS countries. And thereby, it's not as surprising that this group of countries, which is increasing its global wealth and have posed a serious challenge to the entire world order, the BRICS has established itself as a very powerful rival to G7 and other international institutions. The formidability of the BRICS, or we can say that how and to what extent the BRICS is formidable force to be reckoned with, can be gauged from the findings of the Henley and Partners inaugural BRICS Wealth Report, which tries to feature and showcase the exclusive wealth data from the global wealth intelligence from the new world wealth scenario, and which provides a very insightful and eye-opening kind of a commentaries about the very construction of the BRICS country in shaping the future of the market at the global level, not only in terms of land area or the land mass, not only in terms of population, not in terms of the GDP, but in terms of the new world wealth order and the global wealth intelligence system. This country happens to be one of the most prodigious and formidable association of the world, Thereby, there happens to be an additional reason that any course on the extraterritorial application of the competition law vis-a-vis the study of the transnational competition law, we have to engage that what are the broad precept and practices of the competition law in the BRICS nations and the countries. With this, dear learner and viewer, we will try to see that as to what is the objective of the competition in the BRICS country, and from a very objective point of view. And then we find that the principal object of the competition law, as we know and we have spelled so many occasions during the entire course, is to protect the competitive integrity of the market. The competition law primarily prohibits activities which are collusive agreement and try to fix prices, outputs. It curbs abuse of dominance, monopolization, anti-competitive merger. In such a scenario, around the world, as an increasing number of countries were moved towards economic liberalization, there seems to be a renewed interest in the adoption as well as the modernization of competition law. The competition law, or for that matter, the antitrust law, in many jurisdictions of the world, is the branch of law which is designed to protect the interest of the consumer, producer, and the market, and a pro-competitive ecosystem. While the entire implementation of the competition law is rest upon the free market principles of the international trading system and assuming a globalized character, and always remains more open to the anti-competitive activities, it has all tendencies to transgress from one border to the other, and in a trans and a cross-border perspective, assuming extraterritorial applicability and as well as the transnational character of the law. So, it is very pertinent to address the entire discourse on the extraterritoriality as well as the transnational character of the competition law in a global perspective, and its enforcement under the BRICS becomes very important. In this respect, we will be able to cite a case decided by the Justice Burton, in a famous case known as Standard Oil versus FTC. And Justice Burton goes on to record, and I quote, that the heart of our national economic policy long has been faith in the value of competition. So, the heart and soul of any national economic policy have a direct linkages that how much faith, how much value you attach to the competition in the market, unquote. And thus we see that the pioneers in the competition law, though happens to be United States of America, which has reconciled its economic theory and the methodology, which underlies primarily the Robinson-Patman Act of 1936, along with the three major legislations on the antitrust and the competition known as Sherman Act of 1819, Clayton Act of 1914, and the Federal Trade Commission Act of 1914 in dealing with the entire nature and the train of the competition and wishes to protect the consumer and producers and market and try to prevent and curb the monopolistic and oligopolistic tendencies. With this, dear learner, what we learn today in studying and discussing the extraterritorial application of competition law in BRICS country or the transnational application of the competition law in BRICS country, that we try to gauge the inherent potentialities of the BRICS. We also try to see that how the inherent potentiality of the BRICS nation happens to guide the course and direction of the transnational competition law, how the 40% world population in this country are going to bring a radical shift in the global economic power, and how the BRICS country, which were having originally the 4 member, become the 5, and now 5 plus 5, 10 members in 2024, used to have a synergistic construction of competition law, and then the significance dimension of the BRICS country happens to be one of the most fastest growing and emerging economies of the world, try to have a ranking among the first to 10 of the major world powers, and have all kinds of tendencies to influence newer sets of competition system, revisiting of institutional foundation for successful and effective implementation of the competition law, to the extent that it can surpass G7 countries, and it has the tendency of creating the new world wealth. And thereby, if we try to locate the very objective of the competition law in extraterritorial and transnational application of competition law, and especially as we noted that the competition happens to be at the heart of the economic policy, the faith of the economic policy, and the value of the economic policy, we can better understand that why we should engage into a serious discussion on the competition law in BRICS countries. With this, dear learner, I conclude and I wish you a happy learning.